Hello there! Welcome back to Charles Circle, and welcome back to Captain of Industry. Last time we kicked off 3 long-term projects to propel us into the late-game space program era. Of those 3, we made the most progress on farming expansion by creating a centralized fertilizer factory that will distribute fertilizer out to a bunch of farming outposts in the near future. So today we're going to build some of those farming outposts, and also hopefully connect up to our 4th island in pursuit of our steel expansion project. So, let's get into it. Okay, so today's to-dos are organized around the same 3 projects as last time. I doubt we'll make much progress on the aluminum production today. We'll continue terraforming towards this long out and around bridge for our bauxite island off in the distance, but that's lower priority. There's nothing we can really use aluminum for until we're ready to build rockets, and we're not there yet. On the farming side of things, though, now that we've done the centralized fertilizer production, we are able to build our first farming outpost. So you can actually see what I mean when I'm going all Charlie Kelly trying to explain this harebrained distributed farming and settlement concept. I think the first one will be out on Eel Trace. We'll talk more about these as we place them, and I might even preview some of what I'm thinking for the processing facilities. We'll come back to it. And then I hope and also think that we'll be able to build the bridge over here to our future steel factory island today. I actually let the game run for a little bit in between episodes here so that we could get the terraforming moving a little bit faster. I haven't fully crossed the finish line here, but I had to pump the brakes a little bit and start the episode proper because I prioritized dumping so much that it actually tanked our export capacity, and so I need to let that bounce back a little bit first and make sure that we actually have fuel gas to turn into hydrogen, right? So besides that, there are also a couple other bottlenecks that I wanted to resolve on camera anyways, and that is the odds and ends section that is actually specific to this episode, not just taking last episode's structure and continuing it. So there's a few things. Maybe we start with these actually anyway. The first one's real easy. We have increased our household good consumption now up to 49, and we only had 48 production, and that means that I've had to boost this assembly, but you know what? The better thing to do here in the longer run is to upgrade it. I just didn't want to do that without you, so now that we are here, we can simply make that upgrade ourselves. Next, with the import a bunch of sour water contract for our fertilizer production, we've actually lost a sulfur sink. We were sending a bunch of sulfur that we created up here to make fertilizer in our old setup, but again, we've now supplied that sulfur directly through a sour water contract. And that means slowly but surely we have actually overdone it here on our sulfur, and it has accumulated quite a bit. The other thing I did while we were waiting between episodes is let our construction parts stockpiles really spin up, which also meant a whole bunch of basic materials, therefore a whole bunch of exhaust scrubbing, and that meant more sulfur. So, of course, this is this dance we've been doing now. The pendulum has swung back and forth from the slight sulfur deficit that had us importing on occasion from the world sulfur mine, and now it's swung back to we actually have a little bit of excess. So what I'm going to do is just swap this same cargo dock over to the sulfur coal contract that we had been using previously over here. Oh geez, and have still actually been paying to maintain the Unity for the entire time. Whoops. But we'll just swap back to this now and bring in a little bit of coal, which would not be the worst thing in the world to add to our base right this moment. So I'm going to hop in and take care of flipping that around real quick. Alright, well, our cargo ship will be back in a moment with a pile of coal and then more room to put the rest of this sulfur. So we'll let this drain around and then switch this over in just a moment to a coal supply. And I suppose I could have waited for trucks or even just a single belt to handle that, but we have the resources and I was feeling impatient. So the last one on, shall we say, this odds and ends starter list is we should just keep an eye on the Silicon Ridge crude oil transition, because we are now down to, 4% over here. Now, we'll pull the remaining almost 4K of oil from here and in the pipeline itself, but we'll also have the 6K. We have, almost twice as much stored in this buffer, plus this set of train stations and this train. It'll take a moment before we really have to get that over there. But once that train station is empty, we'll switch that train to come over here and save ourselves a little bit of parts and maintenance and so on and so forth with clearing out all of this eventually then no longer necessary infrastructure. But let's keep an eye on it for now, and we'll say, hey, whenever this is empty, will let us know. So I'm thinking about this area for a farming outpost. Out on Ep.26, it's a good amount of arable land. There's an untapped water reservoir over here that's pretty sizable, actually. 20K is nothing to spit at. That'll definitely handle a couple of farms all on its own out here. The only issue is that there's all this lumpy dirt on top of our otherwise flat, beautiful area for farms. So we're going to need to flatten this out quickly before we can actually use the space. And that means it's time to do some mega vehicle work out here on Ep.26. We're going to need to have mega vehicles out here anyway, because we're going to do some sizable mining, and at this point in the game, it's mega vehicle or bust, in my opinion. But I don't think we're going to do the full-on have a supply train run out here thing that we tried over on Silicon Ridge. In the longer run, we don't need any of this. This is all just sitting here. We haven't had to make a new vehicle in quite some time, so it really is just sort of a respawn point in the longer run, and the per vehicle costs are the sort of thing that we could manage by occasionally bringing over a truck. I don't even really think these storages are ultimately quite so necessary. It's too bad. I kind of liked the idea of trying to create sort of an outpost, given the game design choice that mega vehicles can't go on bridges. I thought it'd be kind of fun to see how that feels. I'm ultimately, happy we explored it, but not super interested in doing it again, I guess. So I'm going to build a new mega vehicle depot out here. And then we're going to have a couple normal size excavators come out here and upgrade, which does mean we'll probably have to move around a few different miners out this way. We're definitely overweight on our iron mine here now that these are all mega vehicles. Look how many of them are just chilling. That's pretty wasteful. So we don't need to make more, we just need to reallocate these. We do have still a handful, 10 I guess, of traditional excavators. It looks like, there's 5 of them out here on limestone. I'm not even really convinced we need 5 of them on limestone in the first place, so I will rearrange a few of these and get them out here and flattening once we have the depot itself set up. And since I copy and pasted this, I need to update the name. This, of course, is the Ep.26 Vehicle Depot 3. And while that's going, I've just actually repurposed the eventual mine control tower for our iron mine out here. Might as well just use the same excavators. This will be a temporary terraforming crew. We'll have them mine some iron when they're done, but figured that we would have them come out here and do the dirt work in the meanwhile. I don't mind a long distance run by some of the haul trucks full of dirt, so I've decided we'll concentrate in this area, sort of a combination of where I think the train line's going to come through, and then where we'll place the actual farms themselves, given that the reservoir is here. And then that can come in to our existing ore sorting plant and even go directly onto our landfill export line. So I think what we'll do is add this to the station, or to the network rather, and our trains will do their best to keep this empty of dirt, which I think will also be a helpful thing to be bringing in vis-a-vis getting more fuel gas, huh? And then out here on our limestone mine, I've unassigned these 5 excavators. They've been replaced by 2 hydrogen mega excavators that are slowly going to make their way down from the iron mine where I said we were overweight. And that does mean that we'll have a few extra, of course. We'll upgrade all 5 of these, and they'll need some haul trucks as well to help them out on this side of things. Slowly but surely, you can't Unity build one of these guys, so we'll let our trucks get to it when they get to it. Something you may be wondering, why did I pause this rock storage and this one? So one of the things that you can do is move stuff with Unity. And in order to speed up this dumping process, I was going around to everywhere we accumulate rock. You know, it used to be I could just tell our trucks to come in and clear this out manually instead of shipping it off, but because of the train station linkage stuff, I can no longer have trucks interact with these things. So I was just zapping piles of rock out of here, and that meant I had to pause all the other spots that those rock piles could go. So if you press this button to quick remove, it will go to the nearest available storages, and if there aren't any available storages, it will go to the shipyard. So in order to get that to magically teleport out here, we had to pause all the other locations for rock, including this random little storage out here. So it's a little, I don't know if it's exploity or what, but I don't feel bad about it. I'm going to probably keep doing it here and there in order to speed this process along. As you can see, suddenly we have rock here. The issue is just, especially at plus 40, and especially expanding out into nothingness, it gets, is it exponential? Might even be like more than exponential. How much dirt you need to fill one more of these little squares, just given that you have to cascade it all the way down. And by the way, not just to the top of the water, but to the base of the water. So it's been taking a little bit longer than I had hoped for, but I am still pretty committed to finishing out this set of tiles. I just do think that we're going to be happy to have this surface here so that we can connect out to other plus 40 areas, really specifically that one. Over in our nuclear plant, this alert means that, hey, we've finally gone through all of this backed up reprocessed uranium 1%, which is excellent. That means we still haven't used any yellow cake, but we will soon. And we can clear out some of this. I guess we'll let that line drain the rest of the way here. And I even think, yeah, we're starting to, or we're going to start to soon, back up on generating depleted uranium again, which we are once again making faster than we can consume. We only consume it 4 at a time out here every time we have a plutonium to make MOX rods. And yeah, that's not so often anymore. It was when we were going through the stockpile. We have long since gone through the stockpile. And so I actually think, yeah, if anything, my goodness, are we going to have to add more storage here? It's going to cut off that route. Might have it wrap around and go this way, temporarily occupying the space I was thinking we would have for another row of these eventually, but temporary, right? It's always temporary. Nothing more permanent than a temporary solution, is there? Oh, remember when I was supposed to remember to delete that? Better late than never. So I've thrown those 5 excavators out here, and now that this is up and running, I think we will set up an upgrade job over here for diesel excavators to hydrogen mega excavators. There they are. And we'll do this at Elatrace only for the Elatrace iron mine set here. Start. And then we will do the corresponding diesel trucks to hydrogen haul trucks, also Elatrace, and also Elatrace iron mine. That should give us 5 mega excavators and their corresponding 10 haul trucks to mine out here eventually. We're going to start them, of course, on the dirt, but use them for all sorts of stuff out here eventually. A couple trips later it took finally, but this will now be coal. And nope, please don't do that. Let's get all of that out of here. This is going to accept sulfur, not request it. This is only for excess. But this, we probably do want to prioritize using up because it's going to be in competition with, I think specifically, this is where we get just about all the rest of our manually delivered by truck coal, at least. This is where we supply it via rail right now. Just checking in, by the way, this mine is, well, it's starting to push into the really rocky zones, so we're making some progress here, certainly. And the same's true over here. We certainly have this whole pure floor of, call it 4 or 5 tiles, so we'll get through this section, of course, as well. But the small little excavator team that we've got on the ground floor over here is also making some headway. This is where I'm very happy to be generating a bunch of rock, right? Since we really want rock right this second. Very close. Very close. And yeah, all right, some fuel gas. Not a ton, but we're getting there. Our first Elatrace mega vehicle. Very good. So yeah, this is working just fine with trucks bringing stuff in. If I ever need to speed it up, that's what Unity's for. Well, I will actually say we might want to increase production of our vehicle parts 3 stuff. Maybe we'll, we've got the Unity. Let's boost this production chain for a minute. Really we can do, since that's obviously working just fine and we aren't even building stuff out here really anymore, is maybe clean this up. The hydrogen, of course, we still want for our fuel station here, but we'll let the rest of this stuff come back and enter our general stockpiles. Well, these folks are making some pretty good progress out here. We are getting flatter, which is nice to see. We are, what, 2 excavators into the upgrading process? I wonder, could we speed that along? We could. Let's. And then you can also appreciate that the dirt that they are generating is starting to be helpful in our landfill contract setup, which is good because we are we're running a little close here. The other part of this too, right, continues to be that we are prioritizing slag over here for our sour water generation, and that will eventually cap up here. Of course, we're going to increase our consumption of fertilizer, but this is just about storage buffers for now. Checking in on this, by the way, briefly, this also, of course, did fill up between episodes. One thing that I noticed along the way as this was all charging up is that because this happens in bursts, it's delivered in bursts, processed in burst, the very same problem, actually, going back here, that we have with not having a working buffer in some of these places where crops come in pulses, right? We had to add this in here because otherwise the soybeans would see this as overflow the moment that this machine was backed up with just its internal storage buffer. Same thing was true over here. And so we were exporting quote unquote excess ammonia in the bursts during which it was produced, and then not having an internal buffer, working buffer for ammonia. Same thing with sulfur over here. Ammonia is less of a problem because we're bringing it in as well, but simple enough to do in the short term. I just paused those 2 belts and pipes, but in the longer run, this will all also be backed up. I thought about, may yet do, putting in a working sulfur buffer here at least, and the ammonia I think is less of a concern just because we have some more flowing in here. But as I said, once this backs up, it becomes much less of an issue. Oh my god, I think it's finally done. All right, brilliant. Very good. So get that out of here and we can actually get this bridge built. How exciting is that? So, let's do it. And actually, just to be super precise on the train tracks, I've moved this over just one tile, but wanted to make sure that we didn't build this whole thing and then go, oh shoot, I want the whole thing just over. So we'll let our trucks get to that. It will almost certainly take a bit of time here. Yeah, about, well, 8K concrete and 4.5K steel, which sure feels like a lot less to us than it used to, but ain't nothing either. So we'll slowly but surely chip away at that. It's gonna look good. Yeah, we are going to have to add some more depleted uranium storage out here, so easy enough, I suppose. Let me know when this is full, and we'll just keep adding more. Man, I'm out here boosting the entire hydrogen array, and we're still not processing all the way fast enough. We're getting there. We are definitely on the upswing here, and we've got more fuel gas coming back in a second from all this dirt. It's definitely been the dirt that's helped us dig through that buffer hole that we have put ourselves in with all the landfill. It's interesting, the rock is the least efficient, right, of our trades, certainly ratio-wise, but it is the one that we definitely have, I would say, most consistently now that we've moved slag over to prioritize the sour water contract. And so we do need it. And when I withdrew rock supply for quite some time, yeah, we had a bit of a consequence, but it's nice to fill that in with dirt. That's super helpful. And we are actually relatively close to capping on sour water over here. So that is a good sign. This, however, means that we are officially done with oil pumping in this area. And I have to imagine we still have, yeah, a bit of pipeline draining to do, but we can get this segment and this segment. We'll come back for the rest of it once all this has drained out. This has been the other casualty of our rock issue. We have not made any progress, really, on getting a platform out for the bridge over to our bauxite. I'm feeling more and more like we're probably going to at least start by importing bauxite from the world map. That's my bet, but we will tackle that when we're ready to. And just like that, we're done. On to another island. Well then, I guess it's time for some site prep. So let's go ahead and clear out some trees. If we need to delete them to accelerate things, we certainly can, but let's at least try to get something for it for now. I think that'll mean that we need to remove, let's say, 3 of the tree harvesters, and we'll let them come on out here and chip away at it. But we should probably actually drop a little wood storage in here somewhere for him temporarily as well. And we'll let our trucks handle it. We will also need a mega vehicle capable depot over here because we're going to be doing some mining. So just as we did over here, we'll send some trucks over and then upgrade them. And of course, a mine tower as well. Partly, or at least first, we'll have to do some flattening work out here as well. But then, of course, we'll be doing the actual mining. And yeah, it's going to be sweet. It's such a conveniently put together island. These are the exact 3 ingredients, 4, including the water, that we need to make steel. Iron, limestone, coal, water. And there it is. Iron, coal, limestone, water. We do have a sprinkle of titanium in here, by the way. A little bit of seasoning at the top of the deposit. We'll use that in relatively short order for the later stages of the space program. So we'll definitely be happy to set that aside and make good use of it. It's going to be an interesting shape build. I think it's going to be pretty long and skinny because there's not a ton of room here that isn't partly the deposits, you know? And it's not just that, like, oh, it comes out to here. It's that if you really wanted to dig down and get the last little bits of iron from the depths of that deposit, right? That's 24 down from 40. Like, that's digging down to here. The slope of the resulting mine, even if we were pretty aggressive with retaining walls and stuff, would be pretty rough. So our goal here will not be to scrape every last little bit of iron out, but to get as much as we can. And I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. This is going to be pretty straightforward to get a lot of this stuff. So looking forward to having this up and running. So something else we probably need to do out here, we've been running this cute little electrolyzer to generate our hydrogen for our vehicles out here, and it's already been a little sketchy. And suddenly we've introduced a whole bunch of new hydrogen mega vehicles. This is getting worse. We have rebounded sufficiently on the hydrogen production front that I think we should probably just create a little drop-off station out here as well. So I'm gonna hop in here and add one of those real quick. All right, well, that should work. Try to get a little too cute with an extended out and around here to avoid blocking traffic. Not worth it. Although what we should do definitely is create a return that doesn't require us to go through this station. It's a little awkward looking. I don't know, I like these tight right angles, but of course it does slow the speed. I think this teardrop is okay. At any rate, this may or may not be the final location for hydrogen supply at Trace, but it'll do for now. So hopefully, I believe it's on the correct network. Yes, it is. Hopefully that should create some supply here shortly. And in fact, I think I am comfortable already just going ahead and clearing this out. Actually, yeah, we're going to add a few more of these trucks for sending out to the different... We have a ton. We have a ton of these folks out here now, so I think we're going to go with a few more. And I even think we'll upgrade their diesel fuel to be hydrogen so that they're a better fit out here anyway. All right, there we go. So hopefully that is pretty straightforward. And let's let trucks use that spot as well. Forked track, my old nemesis strikes again. Well, fine. I didn't love the teardrop anyway. I think we will simply extend out here and run a parallel track in this corner. So hopefully that works. Certainly we'll have room out here before you hit a fork. The one concern or consideration would be if this guy's dwell time is going to be annoying sitting here, but he should be okay. Well, we're running down this crude oil storage a decent amount, and that does mean, yeah, the pipeline is empty, so let's go ahead and clear that out. And as soon as he's over, that as well. Very satisfying. See that clean up a bit. Yeah, so it turns out that wasn't right at all. So I think what we're going to do is just add this to our St. Charles manufacturing network. After all, this is something where we already have, these are the smaller trains, I suppose. Maybe what we'll say is, I mean, this is primarily for construction parts factory supply anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and add this station here specifically. and then take this train and put it onto the construction parts supply network. And it should be interchangeable with the other 3 trains already on that network, and this station will still function just fine, and it will block when it's loading and unloading. I just don't want a train sitting here, because previously we would say don't go unless you're full, right? Don't waste the fuel. But yeah, of course, if that's going to interfere with our ability to bring hydrogen out here, we don't want that. Now it's just the fact that he's slow that's keeping us from getting out of here, but we will soon. Well, we've made a lot of good progress out here. We're pretty flat, not quite, so maybe while our vehicles take us across the finish line, we're actually currently bottlenecked by dirt export, let's try to make this idea, this harebrained scheme of mine, a little bit more tangible. So what the hell do I mean by distributed? So, in Captain of Industry, you are incentivized by the game, typically, to centralize a lot of both your production and your consumption. Here, there is, for example, in the transformer, right? It takes a total of, call this 7 megawatts of power, whether you have this at one settlement or one of these at each of 7 different settlements. It'll all add up to the same amount of power. So all else equal, why would you build 7 of these guys? And the same is true for giving really all of these materials. There's no value in having many smaller settlements. And that's fine. I've had no problem playing that way, and I've been playing long enough that I'm a little bit bored of it and kind of curious what it might be like to do something where you have a bunch of little settlements. To be clear, this is not what the game incentivizes you to do. There's an additional transport cost, and there's a very convenient way to put all of this right next to the settlement that'll no longer make sense. But I want to try it, so we're going to do it. And it's going to involve a lot of trains, which is part of why I want to try it. So what this really looks like then is a bunch of smaller settlements, and this is not a final blueprint, but this is a concept that I've been working on. And what this would be is we'd have several of these around. So I'll have one here, say, on the beachfront, because that seems cool. And it'll just be a little 3x3 with a nice little decoration in the center, and we'll max out that value far before, it won't be necessarily worth, quote unquote, placing it, but why not for aesthetic value? And then we will bring in via rail all of the things that we need to supply the city with. And so, for example, this is all of your markets in a series of stations, awkwardly spaced because that's what you kind of have to do to get this all to line up like this. There are a lot of markets. There's 11 different foods, right? It's kind of a lot. But in order to make this work, we have a bunch of these little stations. So that's one of the things I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes, but the train traffic here might be a bit of a mess. We'll find out. And we'll adjust if we need to. But idea being, we drop off all the foods by rail. We drop off all the consumer goods by rail. We don't have Medical Supplies 3 just yet, and we don't have Consumer Electronics just yet, but we'll slot that building in here and upgrade our clinic, and not really the building itself, but select the highest level drop down of the medical supplies that we can at that moment, and we'll just bring that all in via rail. Over here, we're going to export all of our trash via rail. So recyclables and waste both can get compacted and crush their unit volume by a third, down to a third, crush it by 2/3. And as a result, we could ship out our recycling and our waste to a centralized recycling and waste processing facility, something I'm calling the junkyard in my head. And the same would be true of our biomass. This we could turn into compost on site, but I'm not convinced 100% that we don't want to use the biomass, for example, to make maybe some power or some steam at said junkyard. At any rate, it's not a huge compaction. We'll live with that for now. Do reserve the right to change that if we need to. We can of course fit a mixer in. On the wastewater treatment side, this is where things can get interesting. So this is enough for, I think it's like 3,400 people. Well, what is it? It's 8 times 240. Is that how much goes in here? 1 second. 400 times 8. Yeah, 3,200. And I tested this out, and That is the maximum, basically, of these, 8 of these, that you can get into a single wastewater treatment plant. So we don't need to ship our wastewater out. I do really want to do this part on site because the water recycling loop is so important. It's 3/4 of the water provided versus having to then have a centralized processing facility that's just gushing water right back out. But that does mean, for example, that we'd want to export our sludge to a central sludge processing facility. And we will need to bring in some filter media and chlorine. So this is kind of what I'm thinking, right? Now, in order to facilitate this, we need to have, actually, ironically, centralized productions of all of these little things, because I don't want to build a specific to this settlement household goods module and then build the same one elsewhere and then the same one elsewhere. We don't really need to do that. What we can do instead is build a household goods factory, probably somewhere here on St. Charles, and then ship that out via rail to all of the different settlements. So to this one, but then also, what if there was one up on this vista, right? Up in the mountains, and we have an alpine town, and I don't know. I'm not sure where else they'll all go. That right there would already be more pops than we currently have by more than 50%. But the idea being we would just sort of plop down new settlements every time we need to do this, and it's pretty straightforward to just add new stations to the distribution network for each of these goods. So in order to do this, we need centralized food processing and production of these individual goods. So I'm thinking there will be one farm that alternates between veggies and fruits, and then exports to this station specifically. These two guys to keep this full. And another one, for example, that's corn and potatoes, right? Same thing. And then we ship over the meat and the eggs from all of the chicken farms together. Not all of these have a perfect match, but a lot of them do. I like the idea of bread and cake both coming from a bakery, for example. They come from the same baking unit building, right? You can do bread or cake, and that factory, so to speak, right, would import flour for both of those goods. And some other stuff along the way, depending on the different thing, but like there's a central import of flour for a bakery factory. So you can kind of see what I'm thinking, hopefully. So, for example, this is what a bakery could look like. This is the buildings, nothing's connected, right? But something that brings in a ton of flour, right? And also has a water hookup, right? And then there you go, that's your bread. Bread being exported over here. The cake side's a little more complicated. Sugar, cooking oil, this comes from canola, eggs, fruit. Smaller amounts, smaller stations, still would like to have something that we can provide to our various settlements from this same bakery. Of course, if we're going to do that, we're going to need flour coming in from a centralized, call it a mill, right? Which is a concept we could do something like this. So over here, we would bring in all of our wheat from whichever farms on the map happen to be producing it, along with any canola, and this mill building is capable of processing all of the wheat into flour and all the canola into cooking oil, and some waste animal feed in each of those recipes. Over here, we could process our sugar cane, it's a very similar concept, although it's different ingredients, into sugar, and we'd have some biomass again for export to call it the junkyard. And then we have these goods on the outside. So these are the ones that we're most interested in: flour, cooking oil, sugar. These would go, for example, to the bakery. This would go a couple different places, actually, one of which is the bakery. And then we send our waste products. There's a couple quote-unquote factory buildings like this where we would then have some waste animal feed, right? Wherever we make tofu, there's a bit there. We'd also probably want to make a little bit of excess animal feed, but then we'd send this all out to a chicken farm, right? And out here, we would take in all of the animal feed and we would send it out to all of our different chicken farms. They would make eggs, which we would export to the bakery and the settlements directly. And all of the chicken carcasses we would process on site, because there's nothing else you can do with them really except turn it into meat. And we would make as much meat as possible, and where we need to overflow into trimmings, we can. and we can make sausage here. Hey, sausage requires flour. I guess we would have to import that from the mill. And then we send these to the settlement. A little bit of salt we'd have to bring in here too. So this is the idea. And there are going to be some more buildings and factories kind of like this, but there will be a bunch of little farms. I'm thinking, for example, this right here. Well, these just copy pasted, but I would say that corn and potatoes is a good combo. They both go a lot of the same places. The wheat and sugar, everything that goes into the mill, so to speak. And I already mentioned the fruit and veggies one. So I'm sort of looking for combinations of arable land, local water, and rail access. Of course, we can add that because we will need to bring fertilizer to each of those things. So, of course, each of these will need connected and all, and I'll talk about why each one goes where I end up placing it ultimately when we get to it. But that's the general idea. Let me know what you think of that. I'm kind of having fun with it, but I'm curious if it makes sense and or has an appeal to anyone else as well. Let me know. We keep flickering this notification over here that our water reservoir is getting low, and this is the water reservoir that is dedicated to our nuclear power plant. We obviously don't want that to become an issue, and it's only going to increase when we eventually, not yet, but eventually hit the 120 megawatts baseload that will get us to trigger upgrading this even further. It does take quite a bit of water. Now, we recycle 3/4 of it, but that's still quite a bit of water. So, no problem. We have this massive pipeline over here coming from a much larger, very full reservoir. So I'm just going to extend it probably right in parallel with this acid pipeline that's coming over here to the nuclear reprocessing plant. Let's take care of that real quick before it becomes an issue. Make it a nice and large tier 3 pipe, I think. And let's go ahead and actually prioritize the water out to the nuclear plant. Of course, that's more important than water in our silica production. And then out here, though, let's prioritize. Well, we want to keep the recycled water prioritized. I guess it doesn't matter too much if we're draining from one reservoir or the other right now. If we need to make that more explicit in the future, we certainly can. But hopefully that forestalls this from being an issue. It's not an issue right now because it's raining, but it has dropped a couple times here below that 40%, which is the trigger for an alert. So taking care of it now before I forget. Well, we're not quite done terraforming, but we are pretty close, certainly close enough to start building. So let's do that and start by talking through quickly the first 2 outposts that we're going to make for our distributed farming setup. The first is this pair of greenhouses for now, although I think in pretty short order it's going to turn into 4, maybe more. Let's see how it scales, how our demand scales, etc. But the idea out here is to import fertilizer by rail and then export crops also by rail. Which crops? Well, I'm thinking about this as essentially our funnel of supply for what will turn into our mill setup. So all of that crop processing that we would do in sort of this intermediate step. And in fact, I know we talked about canola for cooking oil. We're actually going to start with soybeans. It's a little bit less efficient on the cooking oil, but it is more productive on the animal feed side. We'll come back to that in a second. But the idea is basically that there's going to be a good number of trains making that trip from there to here. And the way that this is going to work is we're going to spit out, I don't know the exact ratios here, we'll play around with them, see how things build up, but some version or some combination of wheat, sugar cane, and soybean. They'll all come out here on this little belt and we'll sort out each of them. The overflow, at least for wheat and soybean, will come back, very similar mechanism to what we used in our original setup back on St. Charles for crops, will overflow back out this way and get digested into animal feed. So rather than set up crop digesters like we did back on St. Charles, we're going to go pure animal feed here, at least for now. There's a lot of chicken farms next door, so we'll talk about that in a second, but that's really the thought. In the longer run, we might have to come up with a way to deal with excess sugarcane besides just reducing the proportion that we're producing here. But the issue with sugarcane is that it doesn't actually have anything other than the anaerobic digester to toss it into for recycling. So we'll see. We might set up something that accepts fuel gas and compost longer run, or we might just say, well, no matter how much we produce here, we want to send it to the mill, and then we'll deal with the sugar stage in excess if we have to. Should be far enough down the road that I'm not worried about it quite yet. So the excess animal feed then will also get shipped out over here to our second farming outpost, chickens. So this outpost has obviously also a rail station. It's going to accept all of the animal feed that we put on the network because these chickens are hungry. They're also thirsty, which is the reason that this is out here on this sizable reservoir. The water does also extend out this way for these farms. Let's hope that's all enough. If it's not, there's another reservoir right through the mountains there. We'll figure out what we need to do to backfill it, but this area felt like one that could handle thirsty stuff. Let's find out. So we bring in the animal feed, there's water, that's everything we need for chickens. They'll spit out eggs and chicken carcasses. Eggs, we simply collect and run out via a belt to this export station. The chicken carcasses we send down here to a set of food processors. So as long as there's space to produce meat, they will prioritize this recipe. We do bring in some salt as well, which we drop off here and send along a belt on the floor. And of course also connect some water here. This will send out meat, great, export station over there. It'll also send out some trimmings. And in fact, this single food processor here, holding the ability to make 24 sausages, will accept all 4 sets of meat trimmings coming out of these 4 machines if we're producing the meat. So that 4-to-1 ratio should hold. Let's see. This sausage making machine, we actually haven't talked about the sausage recipe yet, I guess, since we haven't made it yet. It's just, yeah, those trimmings, some salt, and flour. So we will have to import flour just for the sausages. Not the end of the world, very doable. So what I'd like to do, and in fact, now that they're pretty close, not quite, I want to connect up this line right here because that's going to be a decent size amount of animal feed to start. That's going to be our primary supply. But yeah, so that's the idea here. And then each of these export stations will send eggs off, for example, to each of the individual settlements, as well as the bakery. Meat and sausages go directly to settlements. And actually, these we would like to be larger buffers. These are input buffers that I don't think need to be particularly large. Cool. So this is the idea. The train tracks, obviously, come all the way up here, go all the way back. And we'll need to figure out the trains that we're actually going to use here. Probably have to set up a waiting bay. I'd love to use more of our fuel gas trains just because they're so fast and this is going to be quite a distance. I did try where feasible to use larger turns so that they could get up to speed and stay up to speed faster. Of course, they have to do this whole thing, so there's only so much we can do. But yeah, so I think what we'll do is start by building all these tracks and, geez, I guess all the stations, maybe even the farms. We are definitely not going to build all of this right away. So the infrastructure, absolutely. We will add more chickens to the chicken farms as our animal feed supply allows. That's really going to be how we have to inch up, and this is going to take several episodes, but we'll build all of the infrastructure, all the belts and pipes and whatnot right away. So let me hop in and do all of that real quick. I think we'll start with that. Obviously, not any of the chicken farms just yet, and we aren't going to need all 4 meat processors either. And then over here, I don't think we're going to get to overflow for animal feed right away, but we'll get to it soon enough. At any rate, this is enough for our trucks to start chipping away at. They are immediately already busy, so let's come back to it in a moment and see how it's doing. Speaking of seeing how it's doing, wow, we're starting to chip away at some trees here. I did say start focusing in this area. They randomly decided that down here was the most important area for a while, so I'll micromanage this a little bit more, I guess, and make sure that we can set up at least like some train tracks and stuff here and start sketching this one out. Otherwise, though, everything else seems to be doing all right. How's this water reservoir? Bounced back, looking good. And in general, I think we are doing just fine at the nuclear plant. Not a ton of waste. Although, hey, we actually have some retired waste here that we can spit out and shred. Cool. So we will get a small amount of recyclables, but maybe more importantly, we will get a decent amount of space or the ability to continue to recycle them. I guess these are separate buffers. But yeah, so that's good to see. This will slowly but surely start spitting it out. It's been 100 years, I guess, since we started making fission product. Time flies, huh? So our first supply train has arrived. We've got plenty of salt now. This is the same train, by the way, who normally sits over here. I've adjusted his train line to add that station to the group of stations, well, create a group really, where he would normally otherwise only be considering going to the Silicon Ridge salt import station. So I suppose we should really call this salt supply at this point, Ela Trace salt export even. Yeah, that feels right. So hopefully, he's normally chilling here a pretty high fraction of the time. Hopefully he's got the bandwidth to make that run from time to time as well. Something else we should do while we wait for our construction to complete is update the name of our newest cargo ship to be named after our newest channel member. So welcome to the SCS Thomas Middlemiss. Thank you, Thomas, and all of our channel members and supporters in their various forms. Without you, this would not be possible. I really appreciate it. Everything's built, and we have started to trickle in some small, sad harvests. Part of that was we didn't have water right away, but those pipes are officially full, as are these tanks. Great, so this is sorted. The other thing is fertilizer. So fertilizer, of course, as we've said, we're going to bring in via rail from the fertilizer factory that we set up last time. That was the whole point. And as I zoom back out and I think to myself, how should we transport all of this stuff in the longer run? What logistics setup do we want? We probably need like at least one train network dedicated to circulating raw crops, maybe one for finished goods. Do we set it up with a train per settlement that fetches whatever it needs? What's the right way to do this? And then I looked at the runtime for this episode and I thought, well, I know the wrong way to do this, but it'll get it done quickly today, and that is we actually have a fluid train of a decent size already on the network that is servicing the station for fertilizer in the first place. And so what I've done, temporary TM, temporary measure, is I've added this to the hydrogen production and distribution network, which we either need to fix the unfortunate and improper usage of it, or change the name. I think the idea would be to set up a more rational train network in the next episode or two. But what I've got going on out here is when this guy is done dropping sour water off here, I hope that he just goes ahead and grabs some fertilizer from the same station and sends it on out. Let's see. We're now asking to do kind of a lot. Might need a second copy of that train, but unfortunately I've been adding a couple copies of the landfill trains out here. We need them, and it's already making things a bit more trafficky in this area. All the more reason not to overload this network with things it wasn't ever designed to do. So, not a good idea long term, but it is what we're going to do today to get things jump started. All right, well, that's some fertilizer getting dropped off, and I think, yeah, that's the end of the terraforming process out here. So that's good to see. And I think that also means we can move those fellows over here to the iron mine. Cool, so we'll have them start chipping away over here. I don't know that we're immediately going to be exporting iron out this way. It's a little sketchy. I mean, it could be better, but the floor, I guess, here is still largely accessible to us, and we will hopefully hang in there for a little bit longer with the original St. Charles iron supply. Let's see, though. This is obviously, as is true every episode, closer to being toast than it ever has been before. Made a small change out here because what else? There was a forked track unloading error just with the very last car of the fertilizer train, but so be it. That's why we iterate. So the fertilizer is officially piling up here. We aren't able to eat it all in our farms by the time this guy arrives with more, so good to see. We've got crops starting to pile up. That's a decent amount of sugarcane, and I know there's some wheat and soybeans in here as well. So that's good. We're looking good. As I mentioned, I'm sure we'll double this up in relatively short order, but for now, I'm going to settle for, hey, it's up and running. So chicken farms soon, but again, that'll be the animal feed. It's going to be our big deal there. Once we have some animal feed coming in, we can get at least one farm up and running, and those things grow, so we'll let that happen. Meanwhile, our mining crew is very excited to tackle a mine that's actually close to the sorter and isn't backing up because of dirt too badly. At any rate, it'll back up on iron soon enough, but they're already making some pretty decent progress. Good to see. Cool. So let's maybe check in on today's to-dos. As I mentioned, we didn't do a damn thing on space stuff. Sad. Maybe we should start to move that forward, but there's plenty left to do on this farming project is the thing. So we've got 2 farming outposts on Neela Trace, I would say pretty much built. I don't think we can say that the chicken farm is sorted, and we probably should expand the crops still, but I feel good about the progress that we made there. We did get our bridge to the steel factory sorted out. Again, let me know if you've got good ideas for names for that island in the center. And we've started site prep, actually. It's progressing pretty well. I would say we're very nearly ready to spin up some terraforming efforts here as well to do the same flattening efforts. So that's good. I feel like we've made progress out here as well. This bridge has been been waiting for this for a minute. So that's good to see. The other odds and ends, I guess, obviously we took care of sulfur in household goods very early, and this is working well, I would say. We are definitely able to absorb the extra sulfur and use this coal. That's been helpful to have. And the crude oil transition hasn't actually had to happen just yet. We have, what, one more train load probably before we have to make this adjustment. So all good, all good. We'll wait and do that next episode then. That's all for today though. Good progress on the farming expansion this one. I hope you can see the visions start to emerge from the fog. Still plenty left to do though. I imagine next time we'll push into the next stage of production, get the mill factory I've gestured to a couple times built, and then maybe with sugar processing up and running, we'll hit medical supplies too, so we can claim a bit of progress on the space program front at least. We'll need to do it eventually anyways. Let's see. Until then though, have a great rest of your day, and bye-bye.